Good day, I am Mary Grace Aquesta, and today I'm going to tackle about the principles of translations and translation procedures, strategies, and method. First is the principles of translations. The translations should reflect accurately the meaning of the original text. So that means translating the text, the translator must indicate and interpret similar meaning through there is so many ways in translating a text, but the context of a text should be reflected and understandable of the target text. The second one is the ordering of the words and ideas in the translation should match the original as closely as possible. Yes, because it is important to determining the meaning of the document. In this way, the terms of translating it should be the same and formatting of words should match us up and clear up with the same purpose of the text. The number three is the language often differs greatly in their levels of formality in a given context. For example, in the business letter. So when we read the text, we should at least instinct or feel to know the distinction between formal and informal manners of expressions. So in that way, you can translate careful about the pronunciation, choice of words, and sentence structure, and also finding attention of a certain situations. The other terms of principles of translation is about one of the most frequent criticism of translation is that it does not sound natural. You know why it does not sound natural? Because when we are translating the text, it is important factor in deciding how much translation should be considered, the essence of the translations process, as well as the other factors such as translation purposes, the demand and expectations of the target readers. The next one is it will be better if the translator does not change the natural or the style of the original. So what does it mean? So when the translator understands what the author wanted to say but did in badly, he or she should improve it. But according to my according to my 2012 in theory, the translator should never improve the original unless the translator regards himself as a partner in the authoring process and not simply an adapter of the original. However, this theory applies mostly to literary texts that have already been published, in which the translator can be certain that the original author had already made the best text possible, and that anything that seems imperfect and actually such indeed. So the next principles of translation is about the idiomatic expressions including similes, metaphors, proverbs, and sayings, jargons, slang, colloquialism rather, and phrasal verbs are often translatable. So idioms can be considered as part of, in our everyday language. So there is sense that any language in the most problematic part to handle with. So if they're to be translated literally or word for word, they lead to extreme confusion. So again, idiom itself has a multiple interpretations, and therefore there are some arguments what expressions that are counted in idiom. Now, let's move on to the translations procedure. First is making up a new word. What does it mean making up a new word? Translating a new word from the target language is a long process, so we should think the appropriate word that will be used to translate. These days, people's using variety of references in order to translate. So in this way, the translator should use proper and creative word. Therefore, producing the best possible translation starts with figuring out the meaning of the text before you will translate in the language which is written. And then the second one of translation procedure is about explaining the meaning of the second language expressions in the lieu of translating it. Translating what does it mean? Explaining the meaning of the second language expressions. When you Translating the text is, however, is not an easy task, of course, since it is certainly poses many problems of the translator. So, therefore, what you need to do now is to turn the meaning of the original text into a text in the target language. And the translator must understand correctly how big impact the learning process in translating the meaning of the text. The next one is the translation procedure, which is preserving the second language term intact. What does it mean? The main concern of this procedure is that it has been heavily grounded in one culture that they are almost impossible to translate like words or phrases into the terms of verbal. And the number 4, or the last one of translation procedure, is often for a word in the target language which seems similar to or has the same relevance as the second language term. So, translation process, we create new text which exist independently from their source text, not only as products of the target language but also within the target cultural, and it should be at least relevance in the same way of translating the text. See? The next is the strategies of translations. I have 3 strategies in my research, which is the comprehension strategies. The comprehension strategies is during the process of translation, one could be aware of the reading comprehension strategies that will apply in translating the text. The next one is transverse strategy. This strategy is useful when analyzing knowledge in the process of translation. And the third one is production strategies. Translator ensure that the solutions produces insight that can be interpreted and executed on. Now, the last one is the methods of translations. The number 1, which is the word-for-word translations. Avoid word-for-word in translating the text, but there are some words or source of a language that also need to be preserved, of course. Another one is the literal translation. This is when every word is translated in the same order as, or every or in a very similar order to or the source text. This is depending on the language that can unnatural translation. The next one is the faithful translations. This is impression made on the reader in the receiving language resembles as closely as possible. Fourth one is the semantic translation. Since translation's main objective is the meaning, it is very important to study about the meaning of the text, and we also need to translate it with the context. The next one is adaptations. Adaptations is about the translator must adapt to all nuances of the language in order to obtain the good results when you are translating the text. The free translation. So the next method is about the free translations. When the translator reads the source text, understands its meaning, and produces the same meaning in the target language with the different words and a different word, order to create a more natural sounding sentence in the translation. The next one, the next one is idiomatic expressions. Idiomatic expressions are idioms are abstract, so they don't mean exactly what they say. Different cultures have developed different abstract ways of saying certain things without consulting each other to make sure they use the same idea. That's why idioms cannot be translated literally. Number 8, the last one, communicative translation. Communicative translation is the translator or interpreter should be eloquent in both source and target, and also proficient in 4 communicative skills, which is the listening, speaking, reading, and writing. All for today. Thank you.